While the world was watching Iran, something far more dangerous was happening in the Pacific. And almost nobody noticed. The United States moved its carriers east. It moved its attention east. And for a few critical weeks, the largest ocean on Earth was left with the thinnest American naval coverage it has seen in a decade. China watched, China calculated, and China acted. What happened next should concern everyone. When the Iran war intensified, the Pentagon made a choice. Two carrier strike groups were repositioned into the Persian Gulf and the surrounding waters. The logic was simple. Iran was the immediate crisis. Iran was the active front. And America needed visible force to deter escalation around the Strait of Hormuz. But force is finite. Every carrier pulled west is a carrier that isn't sitting east. And the Indo-Pacific, already the most militarily contested region on Earth, suddenly had a gap where American steel used to be. For the first time in years, the Western Pacific was thin. This is what military planners call a coverage asymmetry, a temporary imbalance that shifts the risk calculation for every actor watching. And Chinese planners study American force posture the way chess masters study openings. They know exactly how long it takes to move a carrier from the Gulf back to the South China Sea. They know exactly how many aircraft, how many escorts, how many supply ships are committed elsewhere. The gap was temporary, but it revealed something permanent. The United States no longer has the fleet size to cover two oceans simultaneously. It has the fleet size to cover one ocean well, and one ocean barely. The Iran war didn't create this problem. It exposed it. And China's response was immediate. In the first weeks of the Iran war, something strange happened in the Taiwan Strait. PLA military flights near Taiwan, which had been running at a steady daily tempo for months, suddenly stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. For 13 straight days, the skies around Taiwan were quieter than they had been since 2024. No fighter incursions. No bomber sweeps. Almost no activity at all. At first, analysts assumed it was a pause for internal coordination. Maybe a political signal. Maybe a rotation of units. It was none of those things. Then, on a single day in late March, the pattern reversed. 28 military sorties in 24 hours. Fighters, bombers, anti-submarine aircraft, drones. A surge across multiple axes of approach. A coordinated operational display aimed directly at the island. This was not random. The silence was reconnaissance. The surge was a message. Beijing was testing something specific. It wanted to see how fast American intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets could pivot back to the Pacific when they were already committed to another theater. It wanted to see which alliance partners reacted first. It wanted to see whether the American political system could hold attention on two crises at once. The answer across the board was troubling. Western media barely covered the surge. Policymakers were consumed by Iran. Taiwan's own defense ministry logged the sorties, issued a routine statement, and the world moved on within hours. Beijing learned exactly what it needed to learn. The response time of American surveillance assets. The reaction threshold of allied governments. The attention bandwidth of the American political system under stress. All of it measured, logged, and filed for the next iteration. This is how real strategic probing works. Not with war, with data. But Taiwan isn't just a military flashpoint. It's an economic one. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, known as TSMC, produces roughly 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. The chips inside every iPhone, every high-end AI server, every next-generation military targeting system, every advanced automobile, every piece of precision-guided munitions America has built in the last 5 years. There is no alternative supplier. This is not an exaggeration. Building equivalent capacity outside Taiwan would require at least a decade and hundreds of billions of dollars. The American CHIPS Act, with all its funding, will not close the gap in advanced node production before the early 2030s. Europe is further behind. Japan and South Korea are partial substitutes for older nodes only. For the chips that define the next generation of military and economic power, the entire planet depends on a single island roughly the size of Maryland. A Chinese blockade of Taiwan would not simply stop chip production. It would freeze the global technology supply chain within weeks. Auto factories would shut down. Data center construction would halt. Consumer electronics would vanish from shelves. Defense manufacturing, already strained, would slow. This is what makes Taiwan the single most economically critical piece of land on Earth. And this is why military strategists say Taiwan is more dangerous than Ukraine. Ukraine is a tragedy with regional consequences. Taiwan is a tripwire with global ones. A war in Ukraine rearranges Europe. A war over Taiwan rearranges the world economy within a single quarter. Chinese strategists understand this. So do American ones. But there's another layer almost nobody outside the region is tracking. And this is the part that changes the calculation. Chinese military analysts have increasingly described what they call a 3 Cs linkage. The East China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the South China Sea treated as one connected theater of operations. Not 3 separate flashpoints. One continuous front. This matters because it means conflict in any one of these waters could chain into the others within hours. Consider the pieces currently in motion. In the East China Sea, Japanese aircraft have reported Chinese jets locking targeting radar on them after Japan's prime minister made public statements defending Taiwan. Radar lock is not a casual act. It is the final procedural step before a missile launch. In the grammar of military signaling, it is a warning that sits one layer below live fire. In the Taiwan Strait, Chinese naval and air activity has built up steadily for 3 years. Each new baseline is higher than the last. Gray zone operations, Coast Guard incursions, civilian fishing fleets used as strategic assets. The line between peacetime and conflict is being blurred on purpose. In the South China Sea, the Philippines is pushing back against Chinese expansion around contested reefs. Manila has reactivated American basing agreements. It has opened new facilities near Taiwan. It has publicly called Chinese maneuvers around its ships dangerous and illegal. Every one of these arenas has its own momentum, and every one of them is connected to the others by Chinese doctrine, American treaty obligations, and geography itself. The United States has mutual defense treaties with both Japan and the Philippines. A single incident in any of these waters could drag multiple nations into direct conflict. A collision, a downed aircraft, a miscalculated radar lock that leads to a missile launch. These are not hypothetical scenarios. They are the standard accidents of contested maritime space, happening more often as tempo increases. And the United States is now fighting in the wrong ocean. This is the structural truth that most public analysis avoids. The American military is designed around a 1+ concept. The capacity to fight one major war while deterring a second. It is not designed to fight two simultaneously. That was never the bet. Right now, significant American naval and air power is committed to the Iran theater. Carrier operations in the Gulf. Air defense integration with regional partners. A standing posture around the Strait of Hormuz that requires persistent presence. Meanwhile, the Pacific Fleet is operating below optimal strength. Maintenance cycles have been stretched. Rotations have been delayed. Allied coordination has had to substitute for raw American presence. Chinese strategists have noticed all of it. China's military, by contrast, is built specifically for a regional war close to its own shores. It does not need to project power globally. It needs to win one fight in one sea against a force that would have to travel 7,000 miles to arrive. In that fight, geography favors China. Short supply lines, massive anti-ship missile arsenals, dense sensor coverage across its coast, home territory advantages that cannot be replicated by any expeditionary force. The American military would be fighting at maximum distance while already committed elsewhere. And this is the calculation Beijing is making right now. 41% of surveyed experts in a recent risk assessment say the probability of a direct U.S.-China military conflict over Taiwan is higher than it was 1 year ago. That is not a fringe group. That is a broad consensus across defense analysts, regional specialists, and former officials. A consensus that did not exist in this form at any point since the end of the Cold War. The diplomatic channels that might normally absorb this pressure are weakening. The planned Trump-Xi summit was postponed directly because of the Iran war. Working-level contacts have slowed. Military-to-military communication, which was already thin, has become even thinner. When communication shrinks, miscalculation grows. And behind all of this sits a deeper structural pressure. The Chinese military budget has grown every single year for 3 decades. The shipbuilding capacity of Chinese yards now exceeds the combined output of every other major navy on the planet. By tonnage, China is already the largest navy in the world. By capability, it is closing the gap faster than any American procurement program can counter. American defense analysts have long pointed to a specific year as a window of maximum risk: 2027. The year by which Chinese leadership has reportedly directed the PLA to be capable of executing a Taiwan operation if ordered. Not certain to launch one, capable of launching one. Capability shapes intent. And the window around that capability may be narrower than it looks. China is facing demographic decline. Its working-age population is shrinking. Its economic growth is slowing. Its property sector is structurally damaged. The international environment is turning against it more decisively than at any point in its modern history. A rising power with a closing window behaves differently than a rising power with unlimited time. The pressure to act while the balance is still favorable becomes part of the strategic logic itself. The Iran war did not create this risk. It accelerated it. It stretched American forces. It disrupted American diplomacy. It distracted American attention. And it exposed, in real operational detail, the limits of a military built for a different decade. And this is the scenario that keeps the Pentagon awake at night. Not a surprise invasion. Not a bolt from the blue. Something more subtle. A slow compression of options. A gradual erosion of deterrence. A series of small moves in contested waters that each, on their own, seem too minor to respond to. Until one of them isn't. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel rams a Philippine supply boat. A Japanese aircraft is locked on by a Chinese fighter. A Taiwanese fishing vessel is seized. A PLA bomber crosses the median line and stays there. Any one of these events, in a world where American attention is elsewhere, tests the credibility of American deterrence. Each test that passes without response raises the ceiling for the next. Each escalation that goes unanswered becomes the new baseline. This is how great power wars actually begin. Not with a declaration, with a drift. And drift is exactly what the current configuration produces. 2 theaters, finite ships, a distracted political center, allies asking quietly whether American commitments still hold at the scale they once did. Now here's the risk that's hiding in plain sight. Deterrence is not a weapon. It is a perception. It exists only so long as the adversary believes it exists. The moment that perception cracks, the cost of reassembling it rises sharply. Sometimes it can only be rebuilt through a crisis. Sometimes only through a conflict. Zoom out, and the structural picture is this. The United States is currently committed in 2 theaters with the hard resources for one. Its adversaries are coordinated in ways that did not exist 5 years ago. Its alliances are stronger in words, but strained in capacity. Its industrial base cannot replace ships, missiles, and munitions as fast as active operations consume them. The conditions for miscalculation are higher than at any point since the Cold War. And the country that is watching most carefully, with the most to gain from a distracted America, is the country that has been preparing for exactly this scenario for 2 decades. The Iran war was supposed to be the crisis. But while the carriers moved east, the real risk was building in the Pacific. 2 oceans, 2 adversaries, 1 military, and a window that's closing. The question isn't whether tensions will rise. The question is whether anyone can stop what happens when they do.